Whoa, Nelly, let me tell you about aspiration.com. So you can go to the head of the line by going to aspiration.com/TYT, and you don't have to wait on the wait list. There's free access to ATMs all across the world. There's no monthly service fee. I know it just gets better. 10% of their revenue goes to charity. I mean, it doesn't get any more lib than this, and no funding of political campaigns or industry lobbying. So if you were looking for a progressive place to put your money, I think we've got your answer for you, aspiration.com.
During Michael Cohen's testimony before the House Oversight Committee, he had alleged that Donald Trump is a racist. And that led to a bunch of back and forth with Trump loyalists and Democrats. Now, Mark Meadows, who is a Republican, felt the need to bring up Lynne Patton, who is apparently a longtime friend of the Trumps. And she's currently working in the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Now, an awkward moment happened where she was brought up. In fact, if you didn't see it, I want to show you what it looked like right now.
Do you know Lynne Patton?
Yes, I do.
I asked Lynne to come today in her personal capacity to actually shed some light. How long have you known Ms. Patton?
I'm responsible for Lynne Patton joining the Trump organization and the job that she currently holds.
Well, I'm glad you acknowledge that, because you made some very demeaning comments about the president that Ms. Patton doesn't agree with. In fact, it has to do with your claim of racism. She says that as a daughter of a man born in Birmingham, Alabama, that there is no way that she would work for an individual who is racist. How do you reconcile the two of those, Mr.
As neither should I, as the son of a Holocaust survivor.
That line's always devastating. So look, this is a walking ad for diversity in hiring, because it's very ironic, because he's bringing up like one of the very rare African Americans working for Donald Trump anywhere in the administration. By the way, almost all of them are in housing and urban development.
That's right.
Because he's a walking stereotype. He thinks in stereotypes. Anyway, but if he had any African Americans on his staff, Mark Meadows did. And I don't know if he's got any at all, but obviously they didn't counsel him, because if he has any, because he would then know that at a bare minimum, this is very racially insensitive to bring up an African American person, but not let them talk and talk for them. You see this prop over here? Now I'm gonna tell you what she thinks. This white guy is gonna tell you what this black person thinks.
Right.
I mean, again, bare minimum, deeply racially insensitive. But I think that the reason he was flipped out by Tlaib calling it racist is because, like, he doesn't even know that, because he doesn't know a lot of black people. I know he says he has black people of color that are nephews and nieces, but they should tell him, hey, Unc, okay, that's not cool. And he just doesn't seem to know it at all.
So Lynne Patton was invited on Fox News to talk about this whole incident. And I think it's really important to hear what she has to say. So let's take a look.
I said it before and I'll say it again. The president does not see color, race, creed, religion. What he sees is success and failure. And whether that manifests itself as a person, a place, a property, a restaurant, a TV show, a policy, a country, a community, he makes no differentiation. And so to me, that's what makes people uncomfortable, is that he doesn't care what people think and he's gonna tell it like it is.
Okay, so she alleges that Donald Trump doesn't see color, but if you know anything about Donald Trump, I'm sure you'd beg to differ. Take a look.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States.
Go into the middle of the caravan, take your cameras and search. John, take your camera, go into the middle and search. You're gonna find MS-13, you're gonna find Middle Eastern. We had a case where we had an African-American guy who was a fan of mine. Look at my African-American over here. Look at him. So we have an African-American guy at one of the rallies a month ago, and he's sitting there behaving.
Unbelievable. He's sitting there behaving. Look at my African-American. He wasn't joking. So look, these guys grew up in such deep racial stereotypes. Again, I'm being overly kind here, okay, that they don't even know that their racism is horrible stereotypes. Yeah. And they think like it's like a badge of honor to have your African American, one person, show up at a rally. And so, but there is one part of what Lynne Patton's saying that is true. It's now Trump would know this phraseology, but it's a rebuttable presumption for Trump. If you're black, as Michael Cohen explained, he told Michael Cohen, blacks won't vote for me because they're too stupid. hilarious given that he's the dumbest guy we've ever had in office, but he thinks about it that way. But it is a rebuttable presumption. On the other hand, if you are really wealthy and you like Donald Trump, those are the two things you need, right? Then he can get past the fact that you're black. So if you're Don King or Mike Tyson and he knows you from hosting some of the fights and you're wealthy and you kiss his ass, okay, then you're in, okay? Muslims, we have to ban all the Muslims, right? And she mentioned that he doesn't care about ethnicity. He called for a total ban on Muslims. How can he not care about ethnicity and religion when you do a total ban on one particular religion? Anyway, but it is a rebuttable presumption. He hates all Muslims unless they're Saudis, and he says, well, they give me $40 to $50 million for my apartments. So if you're rich and you kiss his ass, those are the two requirements, he will get past his racism.
Yeah, and I also want to add one other thing too, in response to what Lynne Patton said. Look, I don't know her relationship with Donald Trump. I think that it's difficult to be overly critical towards someone who's given you certain opportunities, and there's like a power dynamic there. But let's say we take her at her word, right? One thing that I try to think about it as, okay, well, how would I feel if I were in her shoes? First of all, I wouldn't like to be included in the testimony in the way that she was, but that's just me. She seemed to be in favor of that. She agreed to be there. But I also thought about how, when people were attacking you, Cenk, and trying to make it seem as though you're like this terrible misogynistic guy, people would put words in my mouth about how I feel about you, right? And in fact, when reporters, when these people writing hit pieces on you reached out to me to ask me how I feel about the environment here and how I feel about you, considering I'm a woman, and I gave them exactly how I felt. It was never published. My views never published, and I hated people speaking for me.
How is that for irony? Because they say, well, and it was an alt-right attack, so you know where it's coming from, total nonsense, right? But they're like, okay, the alt-right says that Cenk Uygur is sexist. What do you think about that? And you just state your opinion. Well, I don't want to hear your opinion, so I'm not gonna write that, I'm gonna write something else.
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't that be sexist to ignore that? You asked, she's certainly the most important women on air. We've got a lot of important women here, our head of programming, et cetera. But you asked, and then if you ignore it, then apparently you didn't care.
Yeah, and so the reason why I bring that up is because I want to be as fair as possible to Patton, because I don't like the idea of people speaking for her. If she genuinely believes that Trump is not racist, okay, well that's her perspective. But I hope that she understands why everyone else has a completely different perspective, and it's because of that mashup video that we just showed you right now, because of the way that he's talked about race in the past.
Yeah, I mean, if I had done likewise on that issue, then if you couldn't understand it, that would be weird. If I said, okay, now everybody, welcome to the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian. Anna's not allowed to talk. I'll be talking the whole show. She's just gonna stand there, just sit there, okay? Then, and if people question me, and Anna said, well, he gave me a job. I mean, he doesn't let me talk, okay? But he gave me a job. Then you go, okay, and then I'm let down. I don't know if you guys know this, but Anna's now the executive producer of the Young Turks. So she actually decides what's on the show.
I do.
Okay, so watch out. Okay.
I've come a long way. Okay, and then the final point I want to make about this story is the statement, I don't see race. So that statement actually used to be perceived as okay, but I think that the culture has shifted to recognizing that when you say I don't see race, you're kind of discounting or minimizing the different life experiences that different races have, right? And so it seems as if you're like neglecting or ignoring that there's a very different reality for someone who has fair skin versus someone who does not, right?
Yeah, I'll go further. Saying I don't see color is almost an admission of ignorance, because the system sees color, and there's great disparity in this country. Bernie Sanders recently pointed out in a town hall, wealth disparity in this country is 10-1 between white families and black families. And that is legacy left over, yes, from slavery, Jim Crow, and all of those things. Because if you started at a certain level, it's much harder to excel up. You have to overcome those obstacles. We're not saying you can't overcome those obstacles, but that's a reality for a group of Americans. And if you say, no, I don't see it, well, that's not fair not to see it. That institutional disadvantage that people have. And then there's the statistics about crime that we tell you about all the time, where I give you the most common one, marijuana smoked at the same rate for whites and blacks, but blacks get arrested at 3 to 4 times the rate. Well, if you say I don't see color, well, then you're saying I don't see the problem.
Right.
The problem exists. You're just choosing not to see it, and hence not addressing it, that doesn't help the situation. The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.